and hopefully we just got the recording notification. And for those who are new to the community, I'm so excited to introduce you today to some very valuable partners in Ecomedias and of course the GSA. But before I really pass it over to our real hosts, Michael and Paul, to cover the agenda, I briefly wanted to introduce myself, the Institute, and our certification. For those of you that aren't familiar, my name is Bergen Hubert, and I am the Built Environment Manager at the Cradle to Cradle Products Innovation Institute. I work with building product manufacturers and their suppliers, members of the wider built environment community, including architects, designers, owners, developers, and various like-minded partners such as Ecomedias and the GSA, to try to increase the number of cradle-to-cradle certified products and specifications, but more broadly, safe and circular materials in the built environment. Next slide. At the Institute, the Cradle to Cradle Products Innovation Institute, we envision a world where safe materials and products are designed and manufactured in a prosperous circular economy to maximize health and well-being for people and planet. Realizing this vision requires partnering with all of you to demonstrate what is possible if we truly embrace innovation to rethink, redesign, and remake the products we depend on. Next slide. So how we activate and implement that vision is Cradle to Cradle Certified. Our newly released last year, version 4 of CDC Certified, is an innovation and validation framework for products made for tomorrow, really ensuring that they are safe, circular, and responsibly made. In the context of our work, circularity really starts with selecting safe materials that protect human health and the environment, and ensure a high quality of materials available for future use and cycling, followed by responsible supply chain and business practices of clean air and climate protection, water and soil stewardship, and social fairness. The 5 categories of our certification that you see here are underpinned with both qualitative and quantitative requirements that translate also into company and supply chain. We all want the materials used to create our built environment to positively impact human health, the climate, the environment, and society. We cannot achieve this goal alone. So through the deliberate selection of materials, we have the ability to reduce human exposure to toxic chemicals, make communities healthier, and protect our world. As the US federal government is one of the largest institutional buyers in the world, this partnership and the recognition of our certification under the GSA's Green Procurement Guidelines is so important. It is critical for the future of healthy institutions, people, and our country. And with that, I will pass it off to Michael, and I would be happy to answer any certification or program-related questions at the end of the webinar. Michael?
Excellent. It's a privilege to be with you today. And like what Bergen said about questions, Paul and I throughout today will relish the fact that people ask questions in chat while we're speaking, and then we'll interrupt ourselves to both answer those in line of our presentation when appropriate, as well as at the end. I'm with GSA's Office of Federal High Performance Green Buildings, and our office at GSA has a purview of government-wide sustainability, both in the built environment as well as sustainable procurement. And the tool that I'm going to be presenting today, the Sustainable Facilities tool, which also links to the SFTool Product Search that Paul is going to be talking mostly about, is there not just for government, but for the general public to use. Because when we actually create tools that make it easy to do the complex work of sustainability, we actually have a greater chance of getting that work done. And we love having tools that allow people who are setting policy to be on the same page and use the same tool as people actually implementing that change as contractors, subcontractors, vendors, distributors, manufacturers, et cetera. So what we're sharing with you today touches all those bases. And Paul, do you want to introduce yourself at this point or after?
I'll just wait till my
okay.
Second. But I'm Paul.
That's Paul. Okay, so what we're going to do today, since we've already introduce C2C. I'm going to give an overview of SFTool. Then we're going to review the SFTool Green Procurement Compilation, or the GPC, and what that does in order to talk about the rules that the federal government has for sustainable procurement, of which C2C is part. Then we'll review sftool.ecomedias.com and show how C2C certified products appear there and how they are aligned with the rules that the federal government has, which incidentally are not just federal government rules, but the single most comprehensive set of sustainable products anywhere in the marketplace. And so these federal rules are being copied by other states, localities, organizations. So it's not just a Fed-only discussion today. Then we'll give a live demo of SFTool and sftool.ecomedias.com platforms and answer questions along the way. Before we leave today, we'll also let you know how you can enrich the data that we already have about your products. Okay. So SFTool, if you go to sftool.gov, this is what you'd see on the left, our landing page, which it looks nothing like most federal government websites, but it's designed essentially and has been around since 2011 to help anybody understand how to build or buy or design sustainable buildings or buy sustainable products. We consistently update SFTool to talk about the latest in climate, health, energy, and water. And we have a lot of specialties in our organization in those subjects. This tool helps people understand the what to do and why to do it, and even gives examples of how it's being done. It's not just a place where you come and find policies. So the list on the right are some of the most recent updates we've made to the tool, from a lot of health related stuff, totally related to the work that you do here, and beyond. So let me give you a peek into what's in SFTool beyond the procurement side, just so you know what's there for you. We have the Learn page, again, climate, energy, and water topics with multiple links to resources on each. On the left-hand side, we also model what it's like to plan sustainable projects, both in terms of overall strategies, talking about integrative design and life cycle management or life cycle perspective, as well as doing a data dump from the best project managers about how you do furniture, fixture, and equipment projects or full renovations. That's in that second set, or even planning for the future. A lot of great content about climate and adaptation and mitigation. So just generally a phenomenal resource for folks. There's over 4,000 pages of content in SFTool. And like I said, it's available for all of you as a resource. Okay, next page. The Explore section is at the heart of SFTool, where we use green dots anywhere you can make a sustainable decision and allow you to get the ability to compare material types to one another, to understand where you can make the right kind of choices to make a building greener. We cover not only workspaces of all types and show you 3D pictures like the one here of an open office, where GSA is soon going to be returning to our offices in April, but also building systems overall, like lighting, HVAC, and indoor environmental quality. A lot of people think of that occupy buildings, but also buy stuff. Look at a lot of this stuff as abstract, and what our intent was here is to make it real and to let people tour these buildings without actually going on a physical trip. And this section really helps there. Great, next page. We have an apply section and a train section. The apply section is where all of the federal government-wide work in the Interagency Sustainability Working Group, or ISWG, comes to live. So this is where we have the deepest case study set in our tool. And we talk about policy strategies, tools, training, best practices, and case studies. And you may even find things directly about CDC in those sets as examples you might use. On the right-hand side, the Facilities Management Institute is an interactive part of SFTool designed for facility managers. It's where they can test their current competencies about how well they know what they need to know in order to do their job managing modern facilities. And it does touch on procurement, sustainability, as well as cybersecurity and other things in that set. It's free, and then it links to free training. Also, that kind of resource is available to you, even if you're not a Fed, so check it out. Okay, next. What we're really talking about today is the Green Procurement Compilation and Procure. And this is the procure section of SFTool right up there in the middle. You see the line learn, plan, explore, procure. The procure section covers both products and services. While today, Paul and I are going to talk about products most extensively, the services side actually gives sample contract language and clauses that make sure that the services that we procure as feds are actually sustainable also. And we link people to the green products that they ought to buy as well to support those services. You'll notice also underneath the header that we have federal requirements. That's the touchstone. That's what I'm mostly talking about today. But then other agencies have also worked with us to go above and beyond that, with Department of Energy, PBS, and Department of Defense having special links there. Okay, let's go to the next page. So the GPC has 27 main categories and a ton of subcategories, and we'll go into those in a second. We go from appliances all the way to vehicles here, and anything with a green box around it is where Paul and I have worked together to not only show what the rules about buying those products might be, including following the EPA's recommended specifications, standards, and ecolabels where CDC appears, but we also link directly to products through the sftool.ecomedias.com site. So before we get into that, let's go to the next slide and get a little deeper into the GPC. So what you see on the left is the GPC, the base, and what you see in the middle are these green binoculars, or binoculars on a green background. Whenever you see those binoculars in sftool.gov, they will take you directly to sftool.ecomedias.com, which is the essentially digital catalog of the products that comply with the rules that we show on the left. And those are the URLs below, and we will we will send these slides to you after this session, so you'll have all the URLs to reference. Okay. So if we're in building finishes on the GPC, this is what that page looks like. Remember, I mentioned that each one of those categories has several subcategories. So this particular one has 18 product subcategories associated with it, from carpet to signage to wood and concrete stains. So a lot of stuff in here. Each one of the categories on the GPC gives the guidance overall, that middle section that says this is what the federal government says is important about getting sustainability right when it comes to this category. And then we also share all the references that we have, whether it's an executive order or beyond. Each of those subcategories actually have their own sets of requirements and guidelines, depending upon what EPA has said, or whether something like a universal overarching thing like the CPG, the recycled content, or bio-preferred use of bio-waste actually is a very common requirement. Those things occur, and then you also have the other requirements. So let's show you how that works. So here's product category guidance for carpet. You notice that we list in order the federal requirements at the top of that center section, all the way down to multi-attribute criteria, like cradle to cradle, and then single attribute after that. Because what we're doing is capturing all of the requirements for the federal procurement of these things in one place. That's why it's called the GPC, or the Green Procurement Compilation. And then the thing that you'll see us do after that is link to the database that makes sure that anything occurring there has at least one of these criteria met. So the procurement so I already said this, federal programs first, EPA next, and then CDC's certification is listed under that multi-attribute standard. Okay, so under building finishes, you'll see it there too. And you see what else is there. I also already mentioned that bio-preferred occurs quite often in this set. In this case, the non-federal multi-attribute standards and ecolabels include cradle to cradle right at the top. And then non-federal attribute standards and ecolabels, and then specifications too, which also come from EPA. In this category, this is furniture. So you see that the NC-BOMA or NC-BIFMA is there, but also is Cradle Certified and all the others. So this is a great example of how it might seem like it's the same rules over and over and over and over, but each one of these subcategories has their own set ordered. And what's interesting is that as people as buyers for the federal government, we're supposed to pay attention to all these. So the GPC actually was the first time that all of these rules were gathered in one place. That was done back in 2007. But what we did is we used the platform of SFTool to make it easier for users who are actually buyers to figure out all these rules that change constantly and how to access the programs themselves. But just because they could access the programs and check the websites, the individual 18 or so different websites here, to find data about, okay, so what does that mean? How much percentage bio-based content needs to be in something for it to be bio-preferred that I can buy? These are not numbers anybody holds in their head. They're probably not numbers the manufacturers hold in their head for each one of their SKUs. So what we wanted to do is make this process, yes, great, have all of these rules, but this process easier to actually achieve. And that's what you'll see in the next few slides. So to recap what I've said, I take the federal programs and third-party ecolabels from the GPC and make those searchable. Then we also add manufacturer provided data. This is that data enrichment that I teased at the beginning of this session. Essentially, what we realize is that many of the ecolabels and federal bodies do a great job of collecting data, but they don't actually have product pictures or contact information. And this is the type of stuff that if your product already appears in our search because it meets the criteria, we allow you to enrich that data for free by showing you what we've got and allow you to add data to it. And what we do then, in the end, by having that set on the left, working with Ecomedias.com, we actually are creating the largest curated database of federally compliant products in the marketplace. More than 15 categories, more than 4,500 brands, hundreds of product performance attributes. In many cases, we're even able to surface information on EPDs and HPDs that are not standard in the market at all yet. And we'll show you that in a sec. And all of this stuff is free for you to use. Our intent today is to make sure that you're aware of the tool and know that it doesn't take much more to make sure that it works even better for you, and to feed it a little bit of more information, but also to incorporate the use of SFTool and product search into how you meet the needs of your customers. So with that, I'll pass it to Paul.
Wonderful. Thank you, Michael, for that great introduction and covering all the different pieces of the GPC. Our job at Ecomedias is to make it easier for buyers to procure the products that make their buildings more high performance and sustainable. We also work with the other side of the market on the manufacturing side to make sure you can easily be found and discovered by building owners, institutional buyers like the GSA that have codified and kind of created the matrix of what they're looking for. It's a lot easier to meet the need of a buyer when they've told you what they're looking for. And what we've done for Michael from one side is give him all the data. And then with you guys participating in C2C, you guys are giving him a really good, robust bit of data, a lot more than we get from most other ecolabel and certification bodies that have a registry integration point. I wanted to start off by just saying, Michael kind of covered a couple categories and I'll bounce around a little bit, but the C2C Certified Product Registry is referenced in 21 product categories and subcategories in the recommendation engine. So basically what that means, if we were to go through these examples, there'd be 21 pages where, you know, structural fiberboard or structural wall panels or carpet or furniture, acoustical ceiling tiles would all have that reference to a product that is the multi-attribute designation that C2C delivers. So we integrate your data. The registry data that C2C has on their wonderful website is essentially integrated on the back end. So it just doesn't require a person to go, oh, I know C2C, I recognize it, go to the registry, and usually about 4 to 7 clicks later, they might end up with the product categorization. We want to do that very, very quickly. And that's what I'll share with you today is how that works. And then there is a monthly update across the Ecomedias network of that information. So it's not only going to be referenced on the sftool.ecomedias.com platform, but it'll also go to the USGBC and other people that we have network platforms for. So what Michael was talking about is these rules. So he kind of covered, these are things that you would have to go out as a buyer to go find. If you're a contractor, if you're a consultant, you're an A&D representative, working on behalf of the federal government, they'd like you to go out on this data excursion. If you guys have worked on lead projects or well projects or LBC projects, you kind of understand that scavenger hunt. What Michael said when we first saw this is that it's a nice list. He's like, well, what would you do to make it a little easier? And as an engineer that spent a lot of time in this space, I was like, well, why don't we just give them the listings of all the products in this specific category of carpet that have met those requirements? And that's what we built together, SFTool Product Search. So this little set of binoculars, this little ribbon on most of the product pages in there, it allows you to transport as if you had just gone to all these registries, clicked all these refinement funnel buckets, and then gotten this integrated data set back. So BioPreferred is there, 8 different EPA recommended specifications and ecolabels there, including obviously C2C, and then other additional high performance filters that are beginning to become important. Now, they're not mentioned discreetly in this list, but they're additive because the product has already achieved one of these things like a C2C or Declare or Green Label Plus. So we have EPD information, which soon I think will be integrated depending on how the executive order implementing instructions go. We have GSA contract. If you have GSA contracts available, we can actually flag that information, make it even easier for a buyer to find you on schedule. HPDs, life cycle assessments, LCAs that don't necessarily have an EPD structure, living product challenge, and then even things like recycled content. We're working with the EPA right now to help them with their recycled content database. So with that one click, what we've done is we've surfaced as Ecomedias 18,966 compliant products from over 50 brands, 13 ecolabels, certs or standards, and 50 other eco data attributes that aren't specifically a standard or an ecolabel, but things like a manufacturer take-back program or recycled packaging or no PVC or no phthalates or no PFAS. We can add that information so it makes it a lot easier for the buyer. Their job really is just to buy the product. They don't want to go into a gigantic data discovery session on that purchase. In C2C, we transferred over the 3,415 C2C certified products, and 15 brands that are on the registry are automatically exposed to the federal buyer. And when we do the live demo, I'll show you exactly how that works. In another category example, we take all the data for flooring non-carpet, all the things that aren't squishy and soft. There's 8,933 compliant products automatically provided to you. You might notice there's little numbers and brackets next to all the certifications or ecolabels or even brands. That's actually giving you the total count of products at the end of that bifurcated view of data. So in C2C, we have 70 C2C brands, 70 C2C products from 28 brands. Overall, we have over 50 brands, 15 different ecolabels referenced, and over 50 other additional eco attributes available to the buyer. So we're trying to make it super easy. A lot of people call it simplification or streamlining. We really believe that automation of sustainable procurement is really where folks want to go. No difference than all the other ways we buy things online. We research things online. People are making it really easy. We kind of believe that that's our mission every day, to do that for the federal buyer. And ultimately, furniture, same thing. All these things that are referenced gives you about 30,000 compliant products. 56 of those are C2C from 30 different brands. So with one little click, you'll then end up seeing only the C2C certified brands under furniture, if that's the way you want to go with compliance. And as Michael mentioned, you guys are in that upper bracket of EPA recommendations under the multi-attribute standards and ecolabels. They believe that those are preferential, and that's how you've been from the start. So I think that's a really good spot to be in terms of the hard work you've done, and having one of the largest building owner operators and certainly the largest single buyer of things in the marketplace, relishing the fact that you guys have that achievement behind you. So with that, I'll stop. If there's any questions, usually we kind of stop here and see if you have any questions on just gpc.gov or the SFTool. We can answer any questions right now. If not, I can move on to a live demo. So does anyone have any questions they'd like to raise? You can use the chat window, the Q&A. Raise your hand. I think we can even do that in these webinars. Bergen just sent a note to everybody. If you guys want to see that.
I was going to ask a question. What is the best way to get in touch with you and to learn more about the program outside of this webinar?
Sure. After this, we'll send everyone a follow-up with the slides, the video, and then just one-on-one email links. You guys can schedule a half an hour with us. We'll be happy to go through your brand specifically, how your product data arrives on the platform. If you have other things, we'll show you all the data that we get, because we probably have some data from other single attributes you've achieved along the way. And we'll be happy to go through that. So that's certainly open to everyone. If you want to invite as many people as you want to that one-on-one chat, we can happily walk you through. We want to make sure you guys understand, because this tool is really designed for everyone. So it's definitely designed for the buyer to buy more easily, but it's actually designed very quickly. And a lot of manufacturers use it to sell more efficiently to the federal buyer, including their distribution channels, and even in some cases, their subcontractor and trade contractors, because a lot of the stuff that's in this category, it's bought through a project team. So you're going to be working with an A&D rep or a general contractor or your trade contractor partner to summarize all this information. So we'll be happy to walk you through that.
Right. And if you have general SFTool questions, you can reach out to me. But when it's that relationship with ecomedias.com, going directly to Paul is your best bet. And if you forget all of this and you're on sftool.gov, there's an email that you can get to at the bottom right of that footer. And I get all of that. So I actually can forward any message that you have to the proper place.
So I'll start off the demo kind of with what Mike covered very quickly. This is, I think, one of the best sustainability related tools I've ever seen anyone build, regardless of public or private sector. It really has a lot of information. If you could spend time on this just as a general practitioner, you could learn a lot, especially in some of the planning and exploring elements. It's very well done. And I send people there all the time if they just kind of want to understand what things are green in a space. So if they click on flooring, they'll end up getting all the information, and then with one click, get to the federal guidelines. It's a very, very powerful tool to help you kind of understand what's going on. And in Procure is where Michael and I spend most of our time together, is the product category rule. So if I click on building finishes, you'll see those 18 subcategories, and kind of following the example that we covered already. I click on carpet, here's all this information. So I have my product details, which is what I have to go out and go find. There's stuff like legal requirements. It'll reference the FAR, the Federal Acquisition Regulation. There's life cycle cost information, additional guidance. But ultimately, what we were asked to do is say, make this easier for us to find this data so we are buying within the confines of what we're supposed to go buy. And that's where these binoculars basically are going to hyperlink me to my SFTool platform, but I'm only now seeing carpet. So as you saw, we went through, and instead of seeing all 250,000 or so SKUs, I'm only showing you carpet now. All the eco-label data that I would have had to go do by hand, and as a consultant, former consultant and engineer, I would have had to go do this. I would have had to do this every time I try to perform this task. Instead, this little tool that Michael and I have done is a free, I call it an intern sometimes, a free technology database. They'll grab this information for you and now show it to you. You still can do other things like, I want to see only the things that meet C2C. So with another click, now I see the 3,415 results I talked about. And if I want to know all the brands that have met C2C, here are all the brands listed. And every one of them in parentheses will have the total number of products. So some product manufacturers have 1 or 2, or in this case, 4 listings. And that's because they have 4 certificates. Other brands have chosen to kind of spread out that certificate and apply it to everything that's available commercially on behalf of their brand. And I'll go in here and I'll click on interface, for example. Here you'll see 3,227. Their certificates sometimes apply to a family or a collection of products. And what they've done is taken the time to make sure all that product data is available to the marketplace and consolidate that data so that the federal buyer can see not only that they have C2C, but they'll also be able to see that they have other additional information beyond that. And my computer's been a little slow, but here's all that product detail. And then here's ultimately more information, what it meets with CDPH, Green Label Plus, ANSI, USDA BioPreferred, recycled content, material health, and they even have their carbon data here upon what the per unit basis is for cradle to gate carbon. So all that data is available to the federal buyer. They can contact the manufacturer. They can run this product through the gauntlet of does it meet federal guidelines and or any of the green rating systems active in North America. So LEED, WELL, LBC, Green Globe, so they can run that calculation. And what we do here is actually do way more than any other database does, is actually we'll do the work that a consultant would usually charge for and say, this product aligns with this GPC requirement. So very quickly, we have this database that's not only powerful because it's consolidated, but it's really dynamically able to address, well, why are you on the scavenger hunt? I bet you'd probably be doing this because you're doing a LEED project. You can run the calculation and documentation engine all the way through. So we interrogate this product data set and say, you will apply and comply with the following LEED credits. And it's all done on the fly on the behalf of the platform for the buyer or the supplier in this case that might be wanting to provide documentation to Michael Bloom. Michael Bloom used to do project management and do this work. So when we first met, he was coming off of that work and I was, kind of coming in with a technology platform, and we looked at it from the eyes of what would he have wanted to have in his hands when he was doing that work. So there's a wide variety of information that we can surface up. The nice thing too is we have the C2C levels that you can also take a look at. So you can see what level that the C2C certification was achieved at. And that's another way of kind of getting after, well, I'm only going to look for the things that have achieved maybe silver and above. So down there you can select that and they'll have everything that's C2C in carpet, building finishes, and silver. So it's a very simple, fast way to get this information in your hands and make better data-driven decisions. And that's ultimately our goal. We want to make it very simple because it's not simple stuff. I've been doing this a long time, and sometimes I surprise myself how complicated we've made this work. So in furniture, same exact thing, a lot of different certifications being called out, but the same workflow. We will go do the scavenger hunt for you, and then you'll be able to pick a product out of the listing and then find what kind of data it has. We also send the user back to wherever that data lives. So if we go back here and do furniture and we subdivide it by only the brands that have achieved cradle to cradle, if we find that certificate and we want to know more about it, we can actually go back to the registry data for C2C. So if we go here, go to cradle to cradle, it's bronze certified, and then we'll go back to wherever that certificate lives. Grab it. Yeah.
I see a question in the chat here around how to filter by the level of C2C. Do you think you could show that? Yeah, that exactly.
Yeah, so if you select a system that has multiple levels, like C2C, you'll be able to see underneath here will pop up another subfilter, and then that allows you to do that right there. We're probably going to be able to get more granular in the next generation of tool, because now that you guys have C2C 4.0, we might have more granularity. We can also go after things that maybe have a C2C certificate and a material health certificate. So there's ways to select both, and then you'll see larger swaths of products that have met both. And then that C2C level filter still remains available to the user. Good question. Thanks for raising it.
Yeah, it is a good question. I think, yeah, with version 4 coming to the market, we need to probably, and I see once you drill down into the page, you see the version 3.1 or version 4. So yeah, maybe it's a pop-out filter option as we move forward.
We'd love to do that. And we call that advanced. I think in the 3.1 and further versions, the data that we can get out of that certificate feed from us is a lot more robust. So here, material health, material reutilization, renewable energy, we can actually give the sub-credit score within that characteristic, and then also send them back to the source. So we'd love to work with you, Bergen. If there's more fidelity we can get from that data feed, we'd love to expose it and then provide, obviously, a user the quick ability to go get that directly from the registry.
Absolutely. It sounds like we have an API update in our future.
Yeah, and it just shows you the robustness of what a platform like C2C delivers to the marketplace. As you can see, these are other fairly robust data sets, whether an EPD or an HPD or declare, but just look at the richness of data that C2C has done such a good job of sharing with us as a technology integration partner. And then we can pass that along to buyers like the federal government. So if a buyer was really like looking at, material reutilization or maybe social fairness is one of the additional drivers for the, social justice stuff around ESG, we can expose that, and that could be a meta filter before they even found the product category. They just might say, hey, I want social justice as a filter, and that kind of will open up that aperture and grab the products across all these categories that have met that requirement. One thing I do want to show you guys, you might notice that my name's in the upper left-hand corner. The reason that why we allow people to create an account is to save the work that we're doing. So all you need is an email address and a passcode. We're not, sending you spam. We're not blasting your email. It's just to create a spot on our server to allow you to save your work. And the reason why that's important is it allows you to create projects. So I've kind of shown you a bunch of demos of just grabbing a single product, but really the most work that we do is usually through an entire sphere of a project. So here's an example of a GSA Greenville office demo, and I can go grab products along the way of looking at all this stuff one by one, put them into a project, and then be able to evaluate them as a whole through either energy lenses, water lenses of savings, but ultimately just say, I want to run this entire kit of parts through federal guidelines, LEED, well. I'll add living building challenge in there just for good measure. And with one click, the federal buyer can see that entire order across all those product pages, and they've been digitally organized. So unlike just grabbing a bunch of PDFs like we typically have been doing for years now, decades in the space, I can actually grab all them digitally, throw them into an evaluation engine, which is Ecomedias, and actually align every single one of the GPC guidelines with residential refrigerators and dishwashers and disposable cutlery, floor coverings, institutional products, then throw that same kit of parts through LBC, LEED, and well, and do the energy analysis, water analysis. But underneath that, we have all those product pages that have all that individual data provided for the user. So when you have a really nice product listing from C2C, we're going to get the image, we're going to get all that data, and all that data ends up living in our platform with all those callbacks to the source of the data. And then individually, how that one product from Lawn Seal as a flooring manufacturer aligns with GPC, LBC, LEED, and well. So you don't need to know the acronym soup. You just need to say, hey, I've done my job. All my data is digitized and it's empowered by this platform. And now the federal buyer doesn't have to worry about kind of sorting all that. And all those links to those actual documents still live there. We just didn't have to go do all that collection, curation, and assembly. There's no big folder or your desktop that looks like mine, an unruly mess of PDFs. You can go grab it if you want it, but ultimately we want to make sure that's available to the user with one click. So that's the benefit of creating an account. Federal buyers use it all the time, but a lot of manufacturers are starting to use this as a way to provide that. And then you can always just download the PDF and provide it as part of your RFP, RFQ, or order response system. So I'll stop there and see if there's any direct questions or any other kind of demo areas that you guys would want me to run through. I know it's a lot, and that's why we offer you guys up a half hour, just one-on-one. We'll just look at your brand in the context of GPC and Ecomedias. Let's see, I don't see any other questions. If you do go into it,
question.
Go ahead.
I know this is. I brought my questions to the table. I'm curious from Michael, how is the federal government? How is the GSA communicating about this tool internally? How do the project teams know that this is a preferred tool when procuring materials? How does that kind of chain of communication work?
Yeah, so I do presentations like this weekly, internal as well as external. But a lot of what's interesting is the new push for the executive orders from this administration have really renewed the interest and reprioritized where sustainable procurement lands in terms of federal government activity. None of the rules really went away over the last 4 years or 5 years, but they weren't the main focus. And one of the most interesting things, and one of the things that's great for C2C at this point, is that it's not just your energy and water components, it's health, and it's also social sustainability or responsible business conduct that really matters right now. And ultimately, some of us live in the world of sustainable procurement, but most people are like, I just need to buy stuff that my people ask me to buy. And I'm supposed to balance all of these requirements. It needs to be made in America. It needs to be buy clean, whatever that is. I know what it is, but you know what I mean. How do I do a low embodied carbon sustainable energy and buy it from a traditionally disadvantaged community, so that I also talk about the Justice 40 kind of challenges. What's interesting is we're used to working in this world of multiple attributes mattering and figuring out how to put all that together. So by adding the social aspect to a tool like this, we're actually finding ourselves presenting to the environmental justice group about, hey, you guys can use this also. So the conversations are happening regularly, and there's all these new goals that, because of the complexity of the sustainability requirements for so long, we're kind of well suited of saying, okay, we already come with this lens. We're looking for ways to add the criteria you're also looking for to this. And a lot of them are overlapping anyway. I mean, buildings are for people. So if you're not concentrating on the health of the people in your buildings, then you're missing the boat on what sustainability is anyway. Again, I know this group knows that and thinks that way. So yeah, so that's one way. We're increasingly present on social media too. You can follow sftool.gov on Twitter. We tweet daily and share all the different aspects of this. If you're looking for content for Earth Month or Earth Day, you'll find it on our channels too. And that's a great thing for SFTool, again, because people often are saying, oh, it's one more requirement. Instead of getting excited about, wait, I have agency in making what my daily job does help, not hinder, adaptation to the changing climate. Okay, I can do something. Yeah. So we're putting it in those frameworks, and the fact that climate literacy also is a key push within the federal government right now gives us all kinds of ways of bringing up this tool in conversations that were not the kind of conversations we've had over the last 4 years.
Great answer. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I see another question in the chat here from Tanya Sharma. Can you guys go over, maybe this is a good question for Paul, on kind of this different buyer segments that you're seeing as users on SFTool?
Yeah, so SFTool serves and is allowed to be used by anyone. So there are A&D representatives both inside. We've been working with some of the GSA teams that are on the interior side of things. They can use it, but all of the subcontractors, anyone that's doing work on behalf of the federal government that wants to make their design workflow a lot easier, a lot quicker, they could just take a look at that. If they're running a specification on, say, furniture, they could use it to understand what can they specify, how much do they need to go down in terms of specificity. So if they said, I'm looking for furniture, but I'm only looking for seating, with like 3 clicks, they'll be able to see, okay, if I write a spec, I now know exactly how many products meet the following guidelines underneath the subtopic of furniture and seating. So within a couple of clicks, a designer has basically at their fingertips every product, every brand that's achieved the following levels of transparency with a seating subcategory. So designers can use it. Again, it's a free tool. We also have a main platform that's also very similar, but has a lot more product data in it, called products.ecomedias.com. It does not have any sub-curation based on product category rules. GPC has made us kind of curate down only things that meet federal guidelines, but our main document platform called Products has every single certification. There's no product category restrictions on what's available. So you can see a very, very long, exhaustive list of ecolabel data, including, some of the stuff about like greenest products. We have some new carbon filters coming out soon that'll be able to look at EC3 data and a lot more granularity. So any architect's allowed to use our platforms, designers. There's no limitation on who can use it and create an account for free.
And here I'll also add that I think this tool is really good for policymakers and people figuring out how good is the current market at satisfying a demand that's highly stringent. I mean, being able to see over 3,000 different carpet choices when you're at CDC Gold, that's a great example of saying, oh, saying gold isn't going to limit your choice. I think too many people have been in the world of sustainable equals more expensive and less choice. And while the less choice may be for very good reason, the enough choice so that you can compete a project and have multiple brands be able to say, yes, we can satisfy that. Using this tool actually helps you see that as a specifier or as a policymaker too.
Another nice thing is any user that creates an account can actually get a summarization of all their projects, not only at the project level, but overall impact level. So younger designers, a lot of the people that are coming out of school that really want to go work for companies that make an impact. Well, if you're a designer or a specifier, you can actually put all your ingredients that you've been specifying into buildings and actually get a really good running total of how much sustainability did I put in the built environment. And then the impact of that right now is carbon and kilowatts and gallons and dollars, but ultimately we're going to be adding carbon and other types of things around toxins. And in this case, we presented to a bunch of people that do DoD medical facility design, and these project managers were saying, we want to run a sample project. So we built one for them of all the things from cleaning products that go in the building to all their lamps, all their different products from furniture, seating, and plumbing fixtures, and all this data was available to them. And they're like, wow, we now would know exactly what the impact was of our energy savings of the three things that we specified. In this case, $12,000, but 79,000 kilowatts. Gallons were 4.6 million gallons over a 10-year analysis period. And then ultimately they got their LEED documentation. Even though they weren't doing LEED, they still could run the analysis as if they were. And they had a full list of all the products that would have been LEED compliant had they gone after pursuing that designation. So we're really proud to be supporting the people that specify things as much as we do. The manufacturers have made the things that are good enough to meet the specifications. We felt that the model should work for both groups. So, and then ultimately, Michael and the federal government are the owners of those buildings. So we do a lot of work, and then ultimately it's their project that they get to be proud of. So that was a great question. Thank you. We also customized the platform for design builders. So Arco Murray is one of our other groups, and they're on the design build side of things, and they have a similar type of program, and they've decided to create their own standards. So unlike the federal government, they created their own internal standards, and they can kind of figure out what products meet their highest level of standard, but still be basing that responsibility off of third-party ecolabels, certifications, and data sets. So we are very tuned to helping the A&D community figure that out. And all that C2C data goes syndicated to everybody. So your data is not just on SFTool, it's available to anyone that cares to have it. And that's why having a great partner like C2C is so important. Like letting as many people find that data where they're working already is a really good way to get credit for all that hard work you did to get certified. So let me talk to you guys about the data enrichment program. So the way that we look at data enrichment is going to help both the buyer, in this case, the federal government, have better pictures, better descriptions. A lot of that stuff we already have from you guys through C2C. It's a very well organized registry. What we would like to talk to you about is more things about contact information. If you have a GSA contract number, we'll add that, because if we can get better data for you, it makes it better for those building owners that are going forward and trying to improve the balance of their building and make them slowly get more and more sustainable. And we have it in 3 stages. Stage 1 is data enrichment. We'll get your brand names aligned. You might have a couple brand names floating around in the world of all these public databases. We can help you align those brands, tell you first where all your data is coming from, show that to you, get your product names aligned, get your certifications mapped to the correct products, and then any federal purchasing information listed, we'll help you guys update that and then put it into our system, and that'll go throughout the entire system. So if you have a GSA contract, a link to your product page, a link to your actual GSA contract, anything like that, we can bring that information in. If you have a sales rep you'd want them to contact, we'll bring all that stuff in. Secondarily, we can look at, all your product categories. You saw some manufacturers have every one of their C2C products fanned out. We can do that for you if that's something you're interested in. Connect to more buyers and project teams. Give your customer support and project teams a really good, useful tool. And then ultimately, we have a lot of our manufacturers, almost like 90% of them, have a dedicated product data platform to like serve the omni-channel commerce presence that we're getting to. People do 90% of their research now online. So having that information very easily found is really important. I think you guys are doing some great work with Amazon and the Climate Friendly Pledge. So, your GPC numbers, your UNPCs, your Amazon SKU numbers, any of that other data that you want to provide will make it easier for federal buyers to be able to connect to the right product, ultimately buy your high performance compliant product that you have. If you have Buy America Act compliance, we can add that. Manufacturing location, city, state, and zip, we can do that. They can use that for the Buy America documentation. And we are looking at the socioeconomic status of many of your companies. We have the list from GSA. We're going to take a look at that and see if we can do some matching up. And if you would like to add that information, we'd be happy to take a look at that for you as well, to make it, again, easier for GSA buyers to find you if you already have a contract established with them. So it takes a couple of cycles to go through the data, but we're here. We'll be happy to share the spreadsheet with you. Like I said, most of your data is already filled in. There might be a couple columns of data we'd ask you for information on, and we can set up those one-on-ones as soon as we're done with this meeting. And we'll be happy to go through all that information with you. And that way you can kind of share with us whatever other questions you might have. So with that, I'll see if there's any additional questions. I think we have 10 more minutes left. So that Bergen and Michael and I willing to help.
Yeah, I highly encourage you all to take advantage of the data enrichment. That's, even though C2C has more high fidelity data associated with the ecolabel than almost anything else, being able to have that conversation. A lot of us go to any website and are very ecocentric. Let's search for what this site knows about me or about my product. This conversation is actually really good at making sure that you get reflected back everything that we have been able to collect about your products in the system. And it sometimes opens people's eyes to strategies you can take as a business to fan out SKUs or to do things that better connect with business. Because it's like, oh, I didn't know that these choices we made way back then, thinking this is just get certified and it does its work on its own, actually led us to be less visible in some cases than we intended. So we're able to show you how visible your products are in the market when you have these engagements. That alone is worth half an hour, I think, to many. And then ultimately, you're making a tool that much more user-friendly for everybody in government and outside to use as well. So thank you for that.
Very well explained, Michael.
Thanks, Peyton.
Thank you, Peyton.
Yes, thanks.
I will likely have the video of this training out by the end of the day, if not first thing tomorrow. A link to the SFTool, all the different hyperlinks we talked about, and then a link to be able to schedule one-on-one. More than willing to do that before. Give me like at least a day before you try to schedule it, so I can take a look at the product data on our system, get prepared, do a little discovery, and then that way we can have a very productive call and go through all the questions you might have. Again, you'll probably have some data, floating around from other sources. We'll give you all that exposed. I know what's going on, where there's images. There might be broken little links. I mean, in the world of collecting 50 different data sources, I'd say it's a 50-lane on-ramp going onto a 7-lane highway. It can get a little messy, but we've been doing it so long that we really love to share our best practices with everyone. And we want to get you credit for all the stuff you've done. And whatever you do enrich on the SFTool platform will be reflected across all the other Ecomedias platforms for other buyers, other influencers, other rating systems groups, other institutional procurement shops. So just know that whatever work you do, it won't be just done in one place. It'll syndicate out to everywhere. So it'll be hopefully very helpful. And we'd love to have the contact information. So if someone does touch your product within SFTool, they'll have a way to very quickly email you directly, and then you guys can start the rest of that conversation about product and SKUs and colors and all that availability. I know you guys have plenty of other stuff going on as manufacturers. I don't see any other questions. Okay. I'll be happy to give everyone 7 minutes of their day back.
Yeah.
Thank you for the time. Thank you for hosting us, to Bergen and the rest of the C2C team. It's wonderful to do this. We've been doing a lot of, we had like 3 of them last week. So we're kind of in webinar mode, but we'd love to do this. And Bergen, if you'd like us to do it again midway through the year for other folks that might have not been able to attend, let us know. We'd love to see new members. Yeah,
absolutely. We'll do this again later. And then also this will live on our webinars website. If anybody listening to this recording in the future, you found it on our website, hopefully. And we will also communicate this broader to our community in our built environment user groups throughout the year, and stay close to this partnership. And again, work on the data enrichment from our side too, making sure that we're collecting all of the good work through the certification that you guys are doing. So thanks again. Just so happy to have this partnership, and we will talk to you all in the future.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Take care, guys. Bye.